seasoned pilgrim. She does a ton with the Wisconsin Way and other pilgrimages. And she is the sacristan of an incredible local pilgrimage site, Holy Hill. So she is going to be our final speaker on May 4th. So next Sunday on being called to be pilgrims of hope. So really looking at what does it mean if we can't go all around and do awesome pilgrimages, or even if we can, or how do we do that in our daily lives or with a lot of kids? So I really encourage you to come to her presentation and get some ideas for having a pilgrimage summer, no matter where you go or where you don't go. All right, and our speaker for today is Dr. Zabrina Decker. She has been a canon lawyer and a tribunal chancellor for the Archdiocese of Milwaukee for the past 27 years. So we're so grateful to you for being here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's a little warm in here, so thank you for staying awake. Hopefully I won't put you to sleep, but if that starts to happen, we can open the doors and let the Holy Spirit in, and we'll see where we go from there. My name is Zabrina Decker. I minister down at the Mary Mother of the Church Pastoral Center. I live in Greenfield, so I'm not too far from the Pastoral Center. Today was a gorgeous drive on the way up, so thank you so much for your invitation to come and join you. I spent my first 8 years of ministry here in the Archdiocese of Milwaukee as a director of religious education. I was at Christ King in Wauwatosa, and then Blessed Sacrament right in Oklahoma, and loved my work there, and then felt called to join the tribunal. Now, for many of you, you may not know, the tribunal is the court system of the church. So when Grace introduced me, as the tribunal chancellor, I am the one who makes sure that the T's get crossed and the I's get dotted and that all the paperwork gets done. But I am also a canon lawyer, and I function as a judge within the tribunal. Since we are the judicial system, we work with judicial trials within the church that are all governed by canon law. Now, some of you may know that canon law is the universal law of the church. It's pretty much all found here. And considering, when you see the Catholic Encyclopedia, there are a million volumes of that, to say that the law of the church is all contained here says a lot, and that it's the universal law of the church. So no matter where you go in the church, whether it's here, Rome, Asia, South America, it is the same law of the church. There are 1,752 canons, we call them, within the law of the church. And they cover lots and lots of different things. They cover what bishops can do and can't do, how priests are formed, different processes for building a church. As Father can tell you, he had to go and get things called proxies from the Archdiocese. And that's within the book on temporal goods. Okay, and so there are different canons that cover all the different aspects of the church. One of the largest sections is on sacraments itself, and then a subsection within there is on marriage law. Okay? And the tribunal usually deals and works with marriage law. And for us in the church, that means that we work primarily with declarations of invalidity. Okay, now those are commonly called annulments. That's right. Awesome. Now we don't the term annulment is not in the code. The term declaration of invalidity is, but we're so used to using that term of annulment that that's absolutely fine. And that's the term that I'm going to use with us today. But just so you know, if I switch over and say declaration of invalidity, it's pretty much the same thing. Okay. Before we get started, I'd like to just put us in I know we just got through praying, but we can never pray enough, especially on Divine Mercy Sunday, and for our Holy Father. So if we could just put ourselves in a position of prayer and take a moment of silence Lord, I thank you for bringing me here today to join with your people here at Holy Hill. I ask you to please bless us with your Holy Spirit, bring the power of the Spirit upon us so that we may share your message and open our hearts to your word. We ask you to bless your servant Francis as we keep him in mind and in prayer over these 9 days, where we will pray for him and for his soul. All of this we ask in your Son's name. Amen. Thank you. When people hear that the church has a tribunal, I mean, we do regular trials as well. We've done trials, in fact, for sex abuse cases. Those have come through our tribunal. And we haven't had, we had a number of those maybe 15 years ago, and we have not since, praise be God. But as I said, the majority of our work is declarations of invalidity or annulments. And people will say, well, why does the church even care? Why does the church care what happens or what I do if I am divorced and I want to remarry? Why do I care? Why do they care? Well, because for us, if you have a marriage between the baptized, it is a sacrament. It is one of our sacraments in the church. We know that. There is also a particular form that the church asks us to observe in marriage. Okay? So, and many of you know that too. You need to be married in the church in front of an official witness with 2 other witnesses. And it's the consent of the 2 who are getting married that makes that marriage. It's their consent. What happened over the years, and if you want to look at a little bit of history, in the early years of the church, people would be married, and just like lots of other things that were developing in the early church, we had to find ways to work with human frailty, to work with human existence, to work with, as we've seen all the way back to Moses, people saying no to God, okay, and to each other. We had to work with that. Part of it is the forgiveness you just heard about earlier. Okay, we need to forgive each other. And what had happened in the church is that we were establishing our rules and laws. The church understood that law follows life, and that not all marital unions were going to last. Now, historically, what would happen is you married once. That was it. That was your chance. If you did not stay in that marriage, then you were done with the church. And some of you may have heard that in the past, you know, that if you were divorced, you couldn't receive sacraments, or if you know, if that was the end of that was the end of your life in the church. That was it. Well, that's where that comes from. That really was kind of a moment where you were separated from the church. And the church looked at that, and in her mercy and in her history said, we can't have that. That's not how this should work, because maybe it wasn't one person's choice in that union. Maybe it was the other person's choice. We don't know what that circumstance was because we don't know what that relationship was. Everybody's relationship is different. Everyone was raised differently. Everyone makes different choices. And the church needs to bring her mercy to that. So even though a lot of our language in the tribunal is very juridic, it is a ministry. Because what we're doing is we are honoring the information that is brought to us from those who have suffered divorce and may want to remarry in the church, may not want to remarry in the church. They just want us as a ministry of the church to look at that former union and say, you know, would the church consider this valid? Was my consent valid? Because as I said earlier, the parties in the marriage marry each other. They exchange consent. Was that consent valid when we did that? That's the basic question when people come to us. It's not a question of whose fault. There's no fault. I mean, there never is a question of you're right, you're wrong, that's the end of the story. It's not how it works. It is a question of, did we give our consent? When we said I do, was it true consent? Were we able to do that at the time? That's where we start from. Now, anyone who has been divorced can come to us and can ask us to look at the circumstances of that union, of that marriage, and see if, according to the church, if it truly was valid or not, if the consent that was exchanged was valid consent. Now, many people think that the process that we enter into, that if you just sign up, because, you know, we have forms to fill out. In fact, I have some today if anybody's interested to take it along with them and take a look. Some people say, well, you know, you sign up and you pay some money, because there are lots of misconceptions out there about, you know, how much money it costs. And so you sign up and you pay some money and you wait and you get it. Get what? Get what? Get a declaration of invalidity? Maybe, but that's not how it works. Simply because, as I said, everybody's different. Everyone's relationship is different. Everybody was raised differently. Everyone comes from different family backgrounds. Everyone is different. This is not one of those processes in the church. I don't care if you hear it from 100 people. It is not one of those processes that is a rubber stamp. It is not Catholic divorce. It does not happen that way. We know you were married civilly. That's fine. Then you were married civilly. You were married in the church. Was your marriage in the church valid? That's what we're looking at. Does that mean we're looking at you personally? No, it means we're looking at the relationship and what was brought to the relationship by the two parties at the time. So that's what we do. That's what we do. And we really do consider this to be ministry. That's why when people come to us, we recognize that in the divorce there's been a lot of pain. There's no doubt about that. There's been a lot of pain. There's a lot of baggage. We know that. What we're hoping is that in coming to talk to us and having the church look at this union and say that it was invalid because of whatever circumstances might be there, or to say that no, it may have ended in divorce, but the church still looks at this as a valid union. That it is something that will then be able to help the person who is coming to us to say, all right, I have asked, I've got a response, and I can do what I need to do. Okay? So that's kind of the basis of what we do. And the reason that we do it is because, yes, the church in her mercy knew that people aren't going to be able to exist in marriages sometimes, even though they say, till death do us part, sometimes it doesn't turn out that way. So that's why we even have the process that we have. Because if a Catholic, and I'm going to try and, stay as simple as I can, because we can get into a lot of different examples and permutations and all kinds of things. But if you have a Catholic who marries a Catholic in the Catholic Church and exchanges their vows and says that they will live together until death do us part, and then that doesn't happen, and now they want to do this again, so it ended in divorce, and now they want to marry another Catholic in the church, we want to make sure that there is enough self-reflection there to say, hey, I don't want to bring this relationship, to bring this baggage, this old baggage that I'm carrying around, to be free from that when I enter into a new union in the church. So that's kind of what we look at as some of our ministry, to be able to assist people to reflect. Is it easy? No, it is not. Our process is not always easy, and we will get into some of that as well. But it is based on the mercy of the church. And I think, we've got a Jubilee year that we're looking at. We have the example of Pope Francis in bringing mercy to everyone that he met and everyone that, that he worked with, that he touched. So that is what we need to do as well. We are here to bring mercy. Now, having said that, there are a lot of misconceptions about what happens within a tribunal, and we're going to get into those in just a second. But what I want to do is to make sure that I don't miss any of your questions. You've got me here today. I've given you a little bit of a background, okay, as to what we do and how we do it and why we do it. And if you leave just with that today, that's great. But some of you may have come today with particular questions. I don't know if you have a Canon lawyer on speed dial. If you do, that's great. Then you don't need me. I know a friend of mine in the back there does. She does. I know she does. Anyway, but many of you don't. Okay. And I've trained in a lot of things. So especially, if you ever have Catholic trivia night and you want to have a ringer, just let me know. And I'll come and I'll sneak in and I'll be on your team. Okay. And then I'll just sit there and I'll pass notes with answers to everybody. And I'm happy to do that. But I am here and you've got me for a while. So is there, and I'm, not just about marriage, but I mean, we're entering into a conclave. We're entering into a lot of things. You got a new church going on. You got, there are many, many things that are out there. Anyone have any particular questions you want answered? There you go. Thank you. Before I escape this morning, before I disappear into the sunset, I can always come back, but yes. That's okay. Asking for a friend is good. I use that a lot. Right. Okay. Sure. Yeah. And please remember, as I said, every case is individual. Okay. So this is a very individual kind of example. Just fine. Thank you. Sure. Oh, I know. I know. They'll never do. Yeah. Well, yeah, we're going to get to money. That's just not. No, it's not. But yeah. Of course. Of course. Yeah. If you can help out with some information, please do. In a particular case where if you have someone, and we'll take infidelity, that's one of those, $1,000 questions here. So we'll use that as an example since that's the one that was brought up. If you have somebody who from the beginning of the relationship, I mean like courtship, engagement, okay, even though they may have said, I will be faithful to you, even if they stood in front of the official witness of the church and faced their partner and said, I will be faithful to you, but already knew that maybe. And as long as faithful means what I want it to mean. Okay, so faithful means until I get bored. Or faithful means, so if there's any sort of condition that's put on there, if they were unfaithful during the courtship or the engagement, and it's carried on into the union, that could be the basis. And it doesn't, well, we'd have to see. I mean, it's one of those where you go, maybe there was something in the family background. Maybe a parent was serially unfaithful. And because of that, the person who was entering into, whether it's the man or the woman, didn't know how to be faithful. couldn't be faithful, even if they wanted to, because their concept of fidelity was so warped. Maybe. Yeah. You're welcome. But have the person call us. Okay. You're trying. Yes. If you have to have a process, let's put it that way, okay? Now, this is where, I could use I could use a whiteboard, I suppose, and there are like 18 different combinations of things. Okay? So if you're a Catholic and you got married in a Catholic church and you went through a divorce, before you can get married in the Catholic church again, yes, period. That's like the easiest, okay? If you're Catholic and you marry someone who isn't Catholic, but it's still in the Catholic Church, we consider that to be valid. So still, you have to come to us. And if you're divorced, you'd have to come and have that examined, okay, by the tribunal. Now, here's the one that's always kind of interesting. Here's the combo platter, okay? If you're Catholic and you're Catholic, and you get married in Las Vegas at the Chapel of Love by Elvis. Okay? It happens. You get married in the Chapel of Love by, it happens. Do you think you have to come see me in the tribunal, or is there another process? You do not have to come see me. That's correct. Why? Because I was just mentioning before, Catholics are held to a particular form of marriage in the church, right? So if you weren't married in front of an official witness with two other witnesses in the church, or had what we call a dispensation to be married in another place, but still make it valid, this is where you go back and forth in whiteboards and maps and everything, okay? If you didn't have that, then you do need a process. So anytime there's been a marriage, anywhere you need to talk to your pastor, you need to talk to someone here at the parish, you need to talk to us, call us, we're there every day. That, for two Catholics who marry outside of form, right, outside of form, it's very exciting. It's a very complicated title. It's called Lack of Form. Seriously, it's called Lack of Form. We're very inventive. And that comes through the offices at the archdiocese, but it's not an annulment, okay? And basically what that does is it proves, they're looking for documents that prove that they did not marry according to the form of the church. That's it. Okay? So that's something that we do as well, but of course, a whole different process. A whole different process. But that's a great question. So thank you. All the questions are. Anything you got? Yes. Oh, Father. Well, I'm not a father. Yes, Father. I'm sure. Yes. Yes. Sure. Okay. 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 Everybody follow that one? You know, they got this one and you got this person. Father, I understand exactly what you're saying. Okay. So what Father had is a Catholic. So he has a couple coming to them. He's got a Catholic and a non-Catholic. Okay. Baptized though, non-Catholic. Okay. Baptized non-Catholic. That non-Catholic was married previously to another non-Catholic by the Justice of the Peace. Why do we care? Why do we care? They're not Catholic. That happened before they met the Catholic, right? Right? Why do we care? Well, we care because now this non-Catholic is asking for marriage in the Catholic Church with a Catholic. They're coming to the church. Before they are allowed to enter into marriage with the Catholic in Catholic form at a Catholic church, we need to make sure that that marriage, even though it was not a Catholic marriage, this one out here, was invalid. Why? And why can't it be a lack of form that we were just talking about? Because they're not Catholics, so you can't hold them to Catholic form. That's right, but they're not Catholic. They don't have form. So any marriage they enter into, that one in Vegas at the Chapel of Love by Elvis is valid. Because they don't have form like we do. Okay? Now they're divorced and one of them wants to marry a Catholic. They are asking for a sacrament. And before the church admits them to the sacrament, we want to make sure that that marriage was invalid. Then when a decision is reached, then father can go ahead and say, okay, we're all clear if that's the decision, and the marriage preparation can take place, and the marriage can take place in the Catholic Church. It all comes down to the theological concept of marriage and the sacramental nature of marriage between the baptized. That's why. That's why we care. Yes, Father?
They say the ex-spouse will not cooperate.
Yes.
What do I do?
Wonderful procedural questions. But no, this comes up all the time. This is why I ask for questions ahead of time before I launch into, because I can talk all day on this stuff. I mean, you give me another cup of coffee, we'll be here till like dinner. Then you have to buy me pizza. But you know, but this is what I want, because this is what's needed. This is why you may have come here today. I also want to keep track of time because, like I said, I'm here all day. I can come back next week. Okay, so you have someone in our process, okay, the person who asks for the process of a declaration of invalidity is called the petitioner. Father is referring to the other person who is called the respondent. Okay, so the petitioner is the one who asks, the respondent is the one who we, according to law, need to inform that the process is happening. Why? Because it took two people to get into this relationship. It took two people to go through the divorce. And as a judge, I want to hear, if I can, I want to hear from both parties. Both parties have a story to tell, and they may be very different. They may be the same. In my 27 years, I've seen a lot of difference, and I've seen some same. Okay, but mainly, I want to see the relationship through their eyes. I did not live that relationship. If all I get is the petitioner's side of everything, that's going to be hard. Sometimes we have to do that, but it's going to be hard. Canon law, the pretty maroon color book, canon law does require that we make every good faith effort to contact the respondent. What does that mean? That means that, especially in an age of technology like today, we have been able to track down people who maybe 15 years ago, maybe even more, we would have just in the tribunal just gone, okay, well, we looked in the phone book, remember those? We looked in the phone book and we kind of asked around and we asked if the couple had children, do the kids still keep in touch with the respondent? And, is there any way that we can try and find them through their parents or through, can we get any of those addresses? Well, we've gone from that to put it in Mr. Googly, put it in there, and here it comes. Or there are sites you can buy information from. You put in the name, you put in a birth date, here it comes. Please understand how sensitive that is and how dangerous that can be for all of us in this room. I mean, I'm not just saying that because it's something we can do. Anybody can do this. So I know I'm going to give a little plug now for those who talk about internet security. Please make sure you are secure on the web, because I have found all kinds of information about people that petitioners have said, I don't know where they are anymore. Now, when does that come up? I'll give an example here, Father, and you can join in too if you'd like. You said, now it's a little further out, but say during the Vietnam War, Okay, someone got married right before they left because they wanted to be married for benefits and things of that sort. Happens, heard it, no problem. Or they're going to be deployed in Iraq, or they're going to be deployed somewhere. They want to get the extra benefits. They might have gotten married, but they do it really fast before they go. And it doesn't last. And they come back, they're different, their spouse is different. They don't share that same relationship anymore, and it ends in divorce. Were there any children? No. They went their separate ways. Does the petitioner know where the respondent is? Absolutely not. Hasn't talked to him or her in years. Okay? Don't even know if they're still alive. Well, that's kind of hard then to reach them or to find them. Unless, of course, you get on the internet. We have instructions in the tribunal. We have all kinds of instruction sheets as to how to help people find respondents. So, Father, if you need any of that, we can get that to you. We have a whole system of how to do that. And if it doesn't work for you as a petitioner to find the respondent, then sometimes we will do the deep dive and, get underneath and get a paywall and actually go under and see if we can find them. And I would say we've been pretty successful in finding people to participate or not. Now, flowing from that, Father, does that help? Okay. Flowing from that then is probably a question that you've had too, or something. Well, what if they don't want anything to do with it? What if the respondent wants nothing to do with it? Which is fine. The law requires that we contact them and let them know that this is happening. They have a choice. They can participate, they cannot, they can, voice their discontent or their objection. That's their right under the law. Or they can say, yep, I want to be part of this. I want to give witnesses. I want to, come in and talk to you. That's what I want to do. Okay, that's great. They tell us we don't like this. A lot of them, we don't like this. Why would he or she want to do this? I don't like this. That's okay. It's okay. You want to come and talk to us? Come on in and talk to us. You don't want to talk to us at all, but you don't like it, then just tell us that. Okay? It's all right. It is not the easiest of processes. It really is not. It demands a lot of self-reflection, and it demands a lot of self-revelation to people like me whom you've never met before. Now, all of the information that we receive, we take oaths of secrecy within the tribunal. I would not ever divulge anything about anything that has been shared with anyone. I would rather go to jail. Okay? And maybe I will one day, I don't know. So far, I've been lucky. But you never know. But that is how seriously we take the information that is given to us. That is how much we respect that information. Now, if a respondent cannot be found, truly cannot be found, we can. The law expects us to then log all of that in the case, put all of that proof in there that we sent out all these things or that we made all these inquiries or whatever, and then we can go on. So it doesn't stop the case. It doesn't cut it out. We can move. What that then leads to sometimes is the question of, so how long is this going to take? Okay. I understand that. I understand that question. That's also one of the misconceptions that's out there, and I actually have a little, test for us about the misconceptions that are out there. Now, I was going to hand this out, but I think a show of hands is probably a lot more fun. So, how many of you think that this process takes 6 months? 6 months? Longer? How many a year? How many are longer than a year? Okay. And the answer is, it depends. You're all right on one, you're all right, and you're all a little off, and it's okay. Again, since every case is individual, It depends on the involvement of the petitioner and the respondent. We interview petitioners who come to us, so we need to plan a time to do it either on Teams or in person. Sometimes if a petitioner responds or requires, we can send them a questionnaire. Sometimes people respond better in words. Sometimes it's better if they can think about it and fill out a rogatory or a questionnaire. We'll do that, but that's usually, by the time you fill out an application, which just gives us the background, and then we get in touch and it's back and forth, there's a month, at least, okay? At least, because we do this by mail. So hope the post office exists for quite a while, because otherwise we're really in trouble. Then we have people either come in or set up a Teams, and people's schedules are not easy. I know where we are every day, but people are busy. So that could take another month to set that up. And then if the respondent wants to participate, that's at least another month, if not more. And then there are witnesses who are part of the process. And people may say, well, why do you need witnesses? Well, we ask for witnesses because everyone who comes to us and everyone who responds as a respondent, they have their own take. They have their own story. And witnesses, we would like them to be family members, but not children. So moms, dads, aunts, uncles, all of that. And you would be surprised at the information that we receive, especially from parents who at the time didn't think they should say anything or could say anything, but now since we're asking, oh yeah, they're gonna talk to us. Okay? And that's fine. That's why we ask. But again, time. So witnesses need another month to get things in. This is a very paper-intensive process. Like many things in the church, it's a lot of paper. Okay, so it's back and forth, a lot of mail, back and forth, a lot of meetings, back and forth, a lot of process. So say we've got the information from the petitioner, the information from the respondent, all of the information from the witnesses. Life is good. We're chugging along. That's already been at least 4 months, probably, if not more, depending on if there's been a delay or if, a witness didn't respond right away or if they were on vacation. Heaven forbid, those things happen. So, the time takes what the time is going to take. Then when we get all this information in, then we look at it as officials of the court, okay? And if we need to, sometimes we'll involve psychological experts. I'm not a psychological expert. I'm a canon lawyer, okay? What do I know about adult children of alcoholics? What do I know about those who were sexually abused when they were younger? What do I know about children who receive beatings from their parents? What kind of spouses are they going to look for? Abusive spouses, just like their parents were? I don't know. Okay? Sometimes because of the circumstances of the case, we need to involve psychological experts. Okay, now that can be that they look at all of the written information, or sometimes they want to meet with the petitioner or the respondent. Well, there's another couple months right there. Okay? We haven't even gotten to the writing part yet. Okay? So all of that comes back. All of that comes back to us. And right now, a young layman, Mr. Andrew Gass, who is our defender of the bond, is a canon lawyer. You must be a canon lawyer to be the defender of the bond. They're like the devil's advocate for us. Okay? They will look at all of the information that's been gathered, all the testimony, everything that's come in, and they will say, hey, judges, in the testimony you may see this and this and this and this that might lead you to believe that the marriage is invalid. But I, being the defender of the bond of what? The bond of marriage, need to tell you that there's also this to consider, and this to consider, and this to consider. That's his job. So he writes a brief. Well, we receive about 150 to 200 cases a year, okay? There are 2 full-time judges and 1 full-time defender. you can imagine it's going to take us some time to get these things written, to get these things decided, to get all of this taken care of when there are only basically 3 of us who are canon lawyers in the office. He does his, and then it comes to the judges, and there are 3 of us. Now, if I said there are only 2 who are full-time, who's this 3rd person? Who's this 3rd judge? That's our judicial vicar, who needs to be a priest as well as a canon lawyer, and that's Father John Lococo. I'm not sure if any of you know him. He's marvelous. He's new. He's brand new. He got his degree maybe about 1.5 years ago, but he is so good with deliberations and cases and asking questions. He's the 3rd judge in these cases, but he's part-time. He comes in 1 day a week because he's also pastor at St. John Vianney. And he has no help out there. So, I mean, he's like the guy. You put all of that together, and what you have is the perfect storm for it taking longer than shorter, just because of the circumstances. Okay, then if it's a complicated case, and there are those out there that are very complicated, some are more simple, some are more complicated, those are going to take longer as well. So at this point, we're taking about 1.5 years, sometimes 2 years. We're not fond of that. We're working to be able to work that down. Archbishop Listecki was marvelous in sending people to study canon law. Archbishop Grab is the same way. We've got people in the pipeline who are studying to be canon lawyers. We're going to get them in there. We're taking care of this, but just so you know, we're not happy that it's taking longer than that too. We want it done. We'd like it done in 1 year to 14 months at the outset. It's more than that right now. You add about another 6 months to that. So I apologize for that, but we're working on it. We're working on it. Okay, back to the test. This declaration of invalidity. How many of you think it costs money? Here's the money question. How many of you think it costs $1,000? Raise your hand. You have no idea. You can guess. How many of you think it costs more than $1,000? Raise your hand. Okay. And then the rest of you think less or even more than that? Less? Okay. Less. Good. Okay. It does not cost $1,000. I almost want to sound like, I don't like green eggs and ham, and I could rhyme that way. It doesn't cost $1,000, Sam I am. It costs, right now, we ask for a donation of $525 here in the Archdiocese of Milwaukee. It has never cost $1,000. So if somebody tells you, well, when Aunt Gertrude got hers 20 years ago, it was $1,500. No, it wasn't. Not here in Milwaukee. Not in Milwaukee. I can't speak for other dioceses. The Holy Father, before his death, was hoping that all of our processes could be free. Well, they can't be in many dioceses, okay, just because of the cost it takes to process this. But $525, if you can't pay, you know what happens? Nothing. We still process the case. Most of the time, I don't even know as a judge. All you have to do is ask and say you don't have the money to pay, and we don't charge it. We tell the finance office, take this fee off, and that's it. I never hear about it again. So as a judge, I have no idea who pays and who doesn't. That does not affect anything, contrary to what some people believe. We've had people send us a check for like $5,000, and they say, here you go, we're paying this up front. Can we hear about this in maybe a month? No. And we send it back. Unless they want to donate it to Catholic Charities, and then, of course, we keep it and give it to Catholic Charities. But usually we send it back. So it does not cost that much money. You can also make small payments, too. People can send in $25 a month if they want to, but if you can't pay, you can't pay. This is a good one. Can you receive the sacraments if you are simply divorced? Can you receive the sacraments? Yes. No. Yes, you can. So if you are divorced, not remarried, Okay, if you are Catholic and you are divorced, but not remarried in any way, you can receive the sacraments. Okay, that's a misconception out there that has been out there forever, and it is wrong. So that's always one that I want to talk about whenever I present. Do you need connections to get an annulment? Is it who you know or what you know? You don't need any connections. Y'all don't know me, but you could file today and it'd be great. So no, you don't need connections. Now, do you hear about that sometimes in the press? Oh, you know, in New York, they applied for it and they got it and it was a political person. But yeah, you hear about it. Is it true? No. Do we know the story? No, I don't know the story. Were you in the office? I have no clue. So no, you don't need connections. Once an annulment is granted, the children automatically become illegitimate. No. No, don't laugh. That's a valid question that I get asked from people. They're afraid that this church process is going to say something about their children. And it does not. It does not. It says nothing about children. It is, again, an examination of the relationship between the two parties. Nothing about children. Okay? Your children are your children. We're not going to say they're not your children. It's impossible to get an annulment if one of the ex-spouses refuses to cooperate. This is Father's question. No, it's not impossible. Does it create a challenge? Sure. But it's something that we've dealt with many times before. Over my years in the tribunal, trust me, I've heard just about every story, and I've seen just about every situation. And to tell you, the other day I was presenting to our seminarians, the deacons who will be ordained this spring, and they're from all different, they're like 4 different dioceses that are studying here at St. Francis Seminary. And I told them, I said, you know, these are young men who could be my son. I mean, they could definitely be my sons. And I'm just looking at them going, boy. I said, okay, guys. I said, let me tell you this. I said, when I started in this ministry, I said, things were pretty straightforward. And I don't know, Father, you may want to, you know, jump in here too. Things were pretty straightforward. When you had someone come to you for an annulment, it was a Catholic and a Catholic and a Catholic church. And it was their first marriage. And that was it. It ended in divorce. There was a reason. People understood what marriage meant in the Catholic Church. And when it didn't work out that way, they had a pretty solid reason to petition for an annulment. Now, when people come, the complexity of life is such that you have a man and a woman who are coming in for marriage prep. The man may have 2 marriages, the woman may have 3. They're all different scenarios, all different people, in church, out of church, in a different church, in Las Vegas, on the beach, and you have to figure each one out. They might be all here in Wisconsin, they might be in other states. You know what you have to do then? You have to make sure that in any of those other states, they didn't get that marriage, what we call blessed, but please don't call it blessed. It's validated, okay? Blessing is not what you do to a marriage that wasn't a civil. When a marriage comes into the Catholic Church and they got married outside of the church, if they're not blessing the marriage, you are validating that marriage. It is now the real marriage in the church, not a blessing. But we have to make sure that that marriage was never validated anywhere else. The complexity of people's lives is so huge these days. It's amazing. Okay, so the priests in the parishes now are confronted with, I got 2 marriages here, and I got 3 marriages here, and they were off in here, and they were Catholic, and then they weren't, and then they were, and then they went over here. So I told these young guys, I said, you know, you're going to be seeing a whole lot, and they already are, even as deacons in their teaching parishes, they're already seeing that there are multiple marriages and how difficult this can be, how challenging this can be, and yet how much of a ministry is needed to those people who are coming to us in this situation. How much grace is needed, how much compassion is needed. So we need to pray for them. We need to pray for them a lot. Yes. Sure. Yes. Okay. The question, if you didn't hear it, was that in a marriage, children are expected. Let's put it that way. We expect the marriage to be faithful, fruitful, and permanent. Okay? And if one of those is missing, it can be any of those three actually, but the question was about children. If a marriage is consummated, and we know a marriage has been consummated, then that marriage is considered valid and licit. And if there have not been children, if there is an intention saying, we're never going to have children, we want to engage in our careers, we want to travel, we're not going to have children. Well, that very well could be a basis for a declaration of nullity, for an annulment. Okay? But again, it has to be proven, and every concept is different. Okay? But permanence, fidelity, children are the three cornerstones, and if those are missing in any relationship, it could present a basis for a declaration of nullity. Yes, Maribeth? Okay. 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 Usually good thing. Okay. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Aw. Honesty comes with a price. Yeah, it does. It does. Mhm. 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 One of the things that we do here, which I'm very proud of, and thank you for that question. For many years now, the tribunal has worked with the office for prenuptial preparation. And I like to joke that, I mean, Doug Ulisic, I'm not sure if any of you know him, he's in charge of that office. And Doug and I like to joke that we're trying to get the canonists to work themselves out of a job, because if he does what he needs to do on the front end, they're not going to be coming to us in the tribunal on the other end, okay? And we're all good with that. The Archbishop can use us for lots of other things. He doesn't need us necessarily to be doing marriage cases all the time. But that is something that we have focused on, and you are absolutely correct, is that if we can point out the red flags or the concerns at the beginning of the process when people are coming for premarital preparation, then hopefully they won't manifest within the marriage itself, there will not be a divorce, and they don't need to come and see us. Their office has been under a lot of restructuring and a lot of development, and so I'm happy with the direction that they're going through and to. What we have done as a tribunal is usually, well, at least once a year, there had been a mass for separated and divorced here in the Archdiocese. And we, as a tribunal, would go to that marriage, would go to that mass, would go to that mass for separated and divorced, and we meet with people and talk to people and encourage them for not only our process, but to tell us, you know, what can we do better on the front end? Because we can guess. I can stand up here and tell you what I think we could do better on the front end. Does it matter? No. I'm not the one who's going through the preparation. What Doug is trying to do as well is to ask couples, okay, what can we do better? What can we focus on? What have you found? So couples that have been married like a year to 5 years, what have you found to be the greatest challenges? What would have been easier if we had asked these questions ahead of time? We find it flows into a lot of things like family, money, time, calendars, dynamics. I mean, I can tell you what people tell us, but what we need to do with it then is we need to focus on that so that people are better prepared going in. The other thing that I tell our seminarians, and I told them this just, when did I see them? Thursday? Wednesday? This past week. Don't short shrift marital preparation. Don't do it. I said, how long have you been preparing to be a priest? Well, 7 years. Okay. How many times do you meet with a couple in a parish? Well, we're hoping, 2 or 3 times, sometimes a little more than that. Now, I understand priests are busy. I understand pastors are busy. I get it. But marriage is a vocation just as much as any other vocation. The church believes that. And because the church believes that, we've got to have a different way, a better way, I don't want to say better, a different way of structuring how we approach this. It doesn't all have to be on Father. We can do this better, and it doesn't all have to be, well, Father, you should meet with them 7 times. No, we can't do that. He's responsible for everybody and everything. But there has to be a way. We need to find a way to be able to help with this. Yes. Sure. Sure. Argue the. Yep. Yeah, I know. Huh? Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's great. Yeah, I'm not sure if you heard what she was saying, in 27 years of marriage, the thing that she thought would be really great to have is a couple who's been there, an experienced couple to walk you through, to help you with that first year of marriage. So that when you're arguing about, how you fill the dishwasher, that you do it this way or you do it that way, and it creates this huge blow up and you don't talk to each other for 3 days, someone will look at you who's been through this and go, come on now. But it's what you're dealing with. Okay. Yeah, see? The dishwasher. I know. See, I know. That's the one I hear a lot. That's why I use it, because I hear about the dishwasher a lot. The dishwasher, and it's when you load the dishwasher a lot, so that creates a lot of friction. I get it. See the dishwasher? Yes. Mm-hmm. 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 Oh yeah. Very bad. Yes. Years ago. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Oh, we do. Oh, we absolutely do, because all of these things that we do to support each other and to build each other up, the spirit to our relationships will keep you out of my office. And that's what I want. I love seeing you all here today, but I don't want to see you again. It's just it's one of teasing. Yes. Keep going. There are particular rules for jurisdiction. One of them is the diocese where you marry. The other is the diocese where you live. So either the respondent or the petitioner. So if you were married here, you can file here. If you were married somewhere else but you live here, you can file here. It all works. No. No. No, that doesn't work. You have to have some sort of tie to where you are, simply because of the spiritual aspect of it as well as everything else. You know, we want to make sure that you have that spiritual connection to a parish here or to a person here or something, not just here's your paperwork and bye-bye. That doesn't work that way. Yes. Yeah. Congratulations. Yay. Way to go, Father. There you go. Excellent. Excellent. See, and some places do it right. You got it right here. Some places do it right. And we need to raise those places up. We need to figure out what you're doing right and then make that, you know, cultivate that in other parishes and make sure that that all works. Yes. The one thing that is a very hard message, and it's, well, we'll see what we can do in the few minutes that are left. Not every marriage that ends in divorce is invalid. Okay? That needs to be known. It is a very, very sensitive and difficult topic. If someone comes to you and asks you to examine their previous marriage, and the church, based on what we are given in the law to be able to look at that marriage, says, you know, it may have ended in divorce. It is very sad. It is devastating that it ended in civil divorce. But according to what the church teaches, it's still valid. And that can happen. When that happens, then, we really need to take that as a catechetical moment to grieve with that person, because then they can't be married in the church again. And we have to understand that that can be like a death. It really can be. But there are other ways to be involved in the church. Now, it may seem easy for me to say that. It is very difficult, and rightfully so, for some people to hear that and to accept that. It's interesting. Sometimes if we give a negative, the person will look at it and they hate it. Their heart is broken. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But intellectually they go, yeah, I see it. I see it. I understand. The thing that we can do is pray with them, work with their pastors, try and help them be involved in the church in different ways. But we do find negatives. We do give negatives in the tribunal, and they're very difficult and they can be devastating. But if we are to say that every marriage that comes to us is invalid, no matter what, then why do we have the process? And why does the church have marriage established as a sacrament? What does that say about that sacrament in the church? That you just come on in and get a rubber stamp and off you go. It doesn't make that any easier for those who are devastated by a negative decision. But it is what we have, and we are here to defend those marriages in the church, no matter what it might be. Any other questions as we wrap up? It's already 12:15. I know that that is our time. I want to thank you all for your attention. If you have any particular questions, feel free to come on up. I'll be happy to answer them. And if you ever want me to come back, I'll come back. I can talk about all kinds of stuff. So Thank you all. And a special shout out to Father back there. You're doing good stuff here, Father. I hear a lot of wonderful things just from even this group. So thank you so much. Thanks for all your work. Yeah. Okay. Well, isn't it-